Hello, everybody. Welcome to First Fridays. Today is Friday, of course, February 3rd. I am Fiona McEntee, Immigration Attorney. I'm the Managing Partner at McEntee Law Group. I'm here online, going live through, I believe, lots of different platforms, but also from Instagram separately. So if you see me looking up, that's why. I'm going to just say hi to all the people on Instagram. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to First Fridays with Fiona, with McEntee Law, actually. I'm Fiona McEntee and Immigration Attorney here, Managing Partner. Going to go over some immigration news, also answer some questions. And yeah, just here to talk about my favorite topic, which is US immigration. So I guess before we jump into that, I just want to tell you that about a quick trip that I took this week. I was in New York, which was amazing. I love New York, but I hadn't been back since before the pandemic. And I went this week, and it was a 24-hour visit, but I got so much crammed into such a short period of time. The main reason I flew in was to meet some clients, but also there's a group of Irish women founded startups from this incredible group called Awaken Hub. And so they had a launch in Bank of Ireland's New York hub, along with Digital Irish were there. And yeah, it was just an amazing group of women. I posted all about it on my LinkedIn, and you can see some of the companies there. There's amazing founders. They're looking for different, they have different asks. But yeah, it was just a packed room full of amazing energy and just, inspiration. So that was really cool to be able to be there for that. So yeah, anyway, hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're going to kind of go over some immigration news and then I'm going to answer some questions. We did ask for some questions ahead of time. So yeah, so they're coming in. Also, I am doing this solo without some tech support. Our amazing marketing manager, Liz, is taking today off. So if we have some technical difficulties, we'll just work through them. So anyway, I guess the first bit of news that I wanted to share was that the USCIS, so the immigration agency that is in charge of adjudicating cases, they announced the registration period for the H-1B lottery. I'm not sure who is familiar with the H-1B visa or the lottery or kind of what that means, but essentially every year there's a new allotment of these H-1B visas available. These are for people who are doing jobs that require a bachelor's degree in a specific field. The technical term is a specialty occupation. And they're limited in number every year. So, there's 65,000 of them available, of new visas available, plus 20,000 for those with US master's degrees. Somebody asked me this week whether, any master's counts for that, but it's a US master's degree, and there are specific requirements for the type of institution for the master's. Not every single master's can qualify. It's like a nonprofit, there's certain a lot of them will, but it just to know that it has to be a US master's to even consider that. And so every year there's this registration period that opens up in March because there's generally a much higher demand than there is supply. So, the process changed over the past, I think maybe 3 years ago, it changed. And anyway, the process now is that in March, there's a registration period that opens up, and we file registrations, H-1B registrations for a company and an individual, it's specific to a person and a company. And then, they have everybody do the registrations, and then they do a lottery, assuming they'll get more than the 65,000 plus the 20,000, which I'm sure they will. And then the lottery is conducted, and then probably at the end of March, they will let us know which cases have been selected in the lottery. But what we learned this week was the dates of that registration period have been announced. So they normally are, hang on 1 second, I am, speaking of technical difficulties, my mouse is acting up, so I just need to do 1 second, one quick change here. Okay, back in business. So the registration period is from March 1st to March 17th. Does anybody know what March 17th is? There are some Irish people on, I can see, so maybe some of those might know the significance of March 17th. It's St. Patrick's Day. So during that registration period, so from March 1st to March 17th, you can throw your hat in the ring essentially for the H-1B visas. The end of March is when they'll do the lottery, and then the companies have 90 days to file the case. Oh yeah, somebody, Chloe, you're right, it's St. Patrick's Day. So I think we all know that date. And a nice little shamrock, of course. So we won't forget the end of the H-1B lottery registration period this year anyway. So you need to get your hat in the ring during that registration period. And then if you get selected, the case can be filed afterwards. But the H-1B, I mean, it's a great option. It's very popular, hence the lottery, you know, and the demand. Just to give you some context, last year, I think they received nearly 500,000 H-1B visas for this, like 65,000, for essentially 85,000 visas. So the demand is very high, but, you know, every year lots of people win it. So, or get selected, not win it. It's not like a, you know, but I guess it is like a win, right? If you get selected, it's a really amazing option. But it's a once a year thing. So, you know, it's approaching. We're starting to kind of get our cases ready to get them set up. You know, we would need to kind of know ideally at some point in February if somebody wants to apply. I mean, technically we can apply right up until the end of the lottery closes, but there are, you know, it's a registration, so there's some technical setup, and, you know, we need to review some things. So there's things that we need to do in order to get the registration in on time. So just please don't leave it till March 16th. And so okay, pop all the questions in there. I see someone's asked a question. So feel free to like pop the questions in. As I'm reviewing these things, I'll get to them. Just know, just like typical lawyer of me, that obviously it's a public forum. Don't ask anything like private or sensitive. And if it's very specific, I'm not, you know, going to give people individual legal advice here, but I'll give you some general info if I can. So please feel free to ask the questions, but just know that there are, you know, other people watching because it's a public forum, but pop it in there anyway. Okay, so that's our first bit of news, H-1B registration period. The next thing is, well, it sounds very like, I don't know, sad. It's like the title is Say Goodbye to Passport Stamps. Okay, what does that mean? We recorded a video on this actually on TikTok, because now that's what we do. We're on TikTok. So follow us actually, speaking of. The firm has one, and then I have one. I think it's like McEntee Immigration Firm, and then, or something like that. McEntee Immigration Law. Liz will kill me for not having the exact names of mine. I think I'm like Fiona Immigration. Anyway, we'll figure out a way to share the TikTok handles. But I did a video on this, and what does this mean? So, you know, when you're traveling to the US, but other countries too, you know, if you're not a US citizen or not a green card holder, you'd normally get your passport stamped, like a physical like stamp by the immigration officer in your passport. That is being phased out. Don't be panicked if you don't get a stamp in your passport. They started phasing it out, and then they're kind of adding more. So it is gradually just disappearing. And so that means that, you know, I would say if there's one takeaway from this event today, from this first Fridays, the one thing that everybody should do, every single visitor to the US, visa holders or ESTA, visa waiver program, everybody who's not a US citizen and not a green card holder, you need to pull what's known as your I-94 record after every single re-entry to the US. This is so important. It's available online through like GHS, CBP, you know, .gov I-94, something like a long, you know, URL. But it's like if you Google I-94, you will find, hi everybody, welcome to those who just joined us. So the important thing is pull your I-94 after every single visit to the US. Your I-94 tells you how long you can stay in the US, and it is the most important thing that a non-green card holder, non-US citizen needs to know. It tells you your class of admission, so what visa type or what's your status, and it also tells you how long you can remain in the US, which is like your expiration date. Every single time you come back into the US, you need to do this. So you're not getting a physical stamp in your passport, but that's okay because you're getting an I-94. It's in the electronic database, and it is the most important thing. Because sometimes people might have a visa stamp that is good for like 3 years, but their passport is expiring in a year or so, a shorter period of time. And their I-94 can be shortened to the expiration date of their passport. And if you don't know that, that can be a problem because you can end up overstaying by mistake and it can be a big, huge problem. So always check your I-94. Don't panic if you don't get an actual stamp in your passport because you know that it's going to be the electronic I-94 that's going to control your status anyway. So please check that. Okay. Moving on to the next topic is premium processing has been expanded for certain green cards. This is super exciting. Premium processing is the ability to pay, right? It's a pretty hefty fee. It's $2,500, but the government, the USCIS, will adjudicate the case in a shorter period of time. And it's like a finite period as well. It's a specific, it's not just like shorter and, there's like a guaranteed time frame. So premium processing is available for lots of different like temporary visas and then for some green cards. But this specifically, it has been expanded for EB1C, which is the multinational executive green card. In the past, you were not able to premium process those cases so that they could take 12, 13, 14, 15 months, like very long time. Whereas now with premium processing, it's going to be adjudicated, it's going to be reviewed and either adjudicated or request for evidence or some type of government action taken within 45 days. So it's fantastic. Of course it costs money, so that's not great, but at least to have the ability to have the option for people. And also EB2, national interest waiver cases. So both, you can self-petition for a green card through the national interest waiver EB2. We'll separately discuss what the requirements are at some point, but it's essentially like if you have a bachelor's degree and 5 years of experience or a master's degree or higher, like post, if you're a PhD, or if you have exceptional ability. If you don't have either of those, there's another kind of way to qualify. And then if you're coming to do work that is in the national interests of the US, and this can be pretty broad. Tons of different fields can qualify, lots of kind of different work depending on what it is that you're doing. But it also, you need to show that you're well positioned to further this work that's of national importance, and that like on balance, we should allow you to self-petition for a green card. And the Biden administration, though, has really updated the policy manual to encourage more people to opt for this national interest waiver. I know someone had asked in the questions that we received, they were a PhD and they had a PhD, I think, and 4 postdocs. I don't know if they already had a PhD or if they were coming to get their PhD. But the important thing, I guess, to note is that the Biden administration has kind of said that, they'll consider a PhD as an especially positive factor when looking at these national interest waiver cases. And they've updated the policy manual to say what type of evidence would be suitable for some of the criteria in terms of like the national interest waiver and certain things. So, it's a good, well, the policy manual was, anyway, yeah, look, there's been essentially like a announcement by the Biden administration that they want to encourage more people to utilize this option, and also the O1A option, which is the extraordinary ability visa for people in like STEM fields and PhDs and tech entrepreneurs and that kind of thing. So it's a good time to be looking into this if you're falling in one of these categories. So yeah, premium processing has been expanded for these green cards. I think this is especially important for the national interest waiver cases because previously they could have taken a year or 2 years to get adjudicated or reviewed, initially. So it kind of makes this a more attractive option for people. So yeah, we're going to see more of those. Okay, the next thing is there was some news about the Department of Homeland Security is going to be encouraging people to migrant workers essentially to report labor violations. And there's like a whole process that's been announced for those. And then they're going to kind of give a immigration option in relation to those. They just want to make sure that people are not afraid of reporting labor violations. And, they really want to encourage that, because sometimes you do see that people are exploited because of their immigration status, and that it can mean that obviously it's the minority of employers, but people can take advantage of of workers that are undocumented, and they can be forced to work in really unscrupulous conditions. And we've just seen essentially like predatory like employers really exploiting people. And so there's a new kind of option. It's like a deferred act, basically, essentially a protection from deportation option for these people. And it's their goal is that they want to empower workers to come forward and report these violations. I will also note that there is a specific visa for people who have experienced trafficking, which is both sex or labor trafficking. And there's like elements in that visa that require, showing of, like exploitation and things like being forced to work and not getting overtime, threatening your immigration status against you, like taking your passport, like all sorts of things. Hey, Alex, thanks for joining. Hi, everyone. I keep back and forth because I have my Instagram up here. So if you see me averting my eyes, I'm looking up here at the phone, and I also have the streaming here through. So anyway, basically just more protection for workers that are exploited. It's obviously shameful that employers would be exploiting people because of their immigration status, but we definitely have seen this. So it's great that there's going to be like a more policy surrounding this, and potentially this option that will protect them from deportation and encourage people to report these violations. Okay, another thing I want to share, I have been working on my ebook, which is US Immigration Options for Startups, Accelerate Your American Dream. This has been a labor of love, a long labor of love, and I feel like it's like my third child. So it is almost ready. Yay. I'll give you like a sneak preview. This is like the proof that I have. So the actual proof, like not proof like evidence, proof like an actual proof to proofread it. So it is very, very close. We're hoping it will be ready. It will be its birthday will be next week, hopefully. So it's going to be free. It's going to be on Amazon. I'm so excited to share it. It is basically, 15 years of answering questions from startup founders about their immigration options. I've kind of put them all in one, comprehensive guide, hopefully easy to digest, because, immigration can get a bit complex. But, essentially, let me figure out the screen. It's like questions like, why does the US have a startup, or why does the US need a startup visa? Anybody who has ever seen me knows this is my favorite topic to talk about, is startup visas. Is it hard to get an O1 visa, and how can I qualify for that? Can my startup sponsor my H1B visa? The answer to that is probably yes, but we might need to work on how to structure it. And that's important for startup founders that are watching. The H1B period is coming up. So it is possible. I feel like it's like a misconception that startups can't sponsor H1B visas. They definitely can, but you do need to, talk to your lawyer about how to structure certain things. But it is absolutely possible for that to be done. I mean, if you own 100% of your startup, maybe not, and probably wouldn't recommend that in the H1B. But, for other types of, we can kind of work through ownership and kind of what role would be good for you. But yes, H1Bs can be a great option. So anyway, ebook coming out soon. Oh my gosh, I'm all over the place with the camera. Should be out next week. There is a link to sign up for the waitlist. It's going to be free. It's going to be a digital download on Amazon, and then we're going to release it as a physical book as well. But we're taking, one step at a time. Liz and Paulina on my team have been amazing. Catherine too. Everyone's been helping to try to get this out there, and we're just so excited that it's almost ready. Next week it should be out there. I'm putting it out there, manifesting that it will be out. It'll be ready by next week. So I'm excited for everybody to see this. On February 17th, which is a month before St. Patrick's Day, my brother-in-law partner Ray here is going to be doing a webinar on Irish citizenship. So in our firm, we handle almost like, we handle US immigration law, And then we also do Irish citizenship by descent. So for people who have like a close, either a grandparent or a parent, depending on the specifics, if they have a grandparent or a parent who was either born in Ireland or an Irish citizen, Ray is going to talk about the process for getting Irish citizenship. People always ask about whether does the US allow dual citizenship with Ireland, for example? And it's more about the other countries' policies and things like that. So there's a lot of us that I know a lot of people that are dual US Irish citizens, myself included. So there's no prohibition on that. Sometimes you see the issue with citizenship, like I think Germany might be one, like if you're an India's one as well. If you're an Indian or German citizen, if you later acquire a second citizenship, you may have to give up your original citizenship. But we don't have that between the US and Ireland. So if you think that this might be something you're interested in, you can sign up for the Irish citizenship webinar on February 17th, which is exactly a month before St. Patrick's Day. Okay, TikTok handles are here, and I want to encourage everybody to follow us on TikTok. I promise I'm not dancing there because nobody needs to see that. But my handle is Immigration Lawyer Fiona. And the TikTok handle for the firm is McEntee Immigration Law. So you can join us there. And we're trying to obviously post like short informative videos. And the passport stamp one that I mentioned earlier, that got quite a bit. Oh, here's Liz. Liz is on her day off, but she's joining in from afar. Hi, thanks for jumping on. So that's kind of the news we've just gone through. Just to recap, the H-1B registration period has been announced. It's March 1st to March 17th. Please contact us if you're your employer or you are an employer and looking to hire somebody in this, because it's like a once a year thing. Oh, Liz, you're welcome for the car entertainment. Glad that you can join us. She's not driving, I think. She's a passenger in case anyone else is concerned. Second thing, we're saying goodbye to passport stamps. Don't freak out if you don't get one. Go on and look at your I-94 online, and that's so important for every visitor to the US, whether you have a visa or you're here on ESTA, visa waiver program. We also discussed premium processing being expanded for certain green cards, and it's also going to be introduced in the future for like student visas and things like that. But for now, it's fully available for the EB1C green cards and for the national interest waiver EB2. Second, and then final was like DHS allowing for immigrants to report labor violations and potentially get some type of deferred action there. I mentioned the ebook, Irish citizenship webinar, and of course gave you our TikTok handles. So now we're going to get to questions. Somebody asked a question here. There were a couple. I'm just scrolling back up through the Instagram feed. Okay. So, okay. 2 questions here. Let me take them one at a time. So I have a question. How long is the wait time after you get fingerprints taken for a green card through an employer? Okay. So this is assuming the person is in the US and going through what's known as an adjustment of status, where you're changing your status from like temporary visa to you're adjusting it to green card. You can do that process through family immigration, so family sponsored green card, or through an employer. But essentially, like what happens after you file the green card application, which is an I-485 form, with that you normally file for a travel and work card. So you file the 485. And then the next thing that happens is you get receipt notices in the mail, and they normally come about 2 weeks or so after the application has been receipted. And the government does send things through snail mail, so it's not electronic. So we get them physical receipt notices in the mail by 2 weeks-ish, 2 to 3 weeks maybe after the case has been filed. And then the next thing that happens is that you get a notice for biometrics. And do no need to be nervous or, panicking about that. Biometrics is getting your fingerprints and your photograph taken to just put them, they'll do a security clearance and all that kind of stuff. But that's what the biometrics means. The biometrics notice normally comes in about a month or 2 after the green card application has been filed. And so you'll get a date where you appear with your biometrics notice, your ID, that's read the instructions clearly to know what you need to bring, but you show up on the date and the time that you've been asked to show up, and you get your fingerprints and your photograph taken. So then after that, the USCIS, the agency, works on like adjudicating your travel and your work card. So I'll answer now the second question with this. So this person's question was, how long is the wait time after you get your fingerprints to, I don't know if they were asking about the green card application or the travel and work card, but normally what happens is you get your biometrics taken and then you get your travel and your work card, your travel and or work permit. And then down the line, you'll have your green card. Either sometimes you'll have an interview for it. If you're employer based, you may or may not have an interview. If you're family based, they've actually started waiving the interviews for some marriage based cases, so you may not have an interview for that. The time frame is hard to predict because it depends on where you are, where your case was filed. I mean, there is a list of like USCIS processing times, but they're very, I would say, unhelpful. It's like 80% of cases are adjudicated in like 16 months or less. It's like, okay, it doesn't really give us specific guidance on how long that's taking. That's like a very broad window, and that's, I just obviously just kind of improvise by pulling that figure out. So, but it's just really random, I would say, and it's very hard to predict. So we don't know. It depends on, I just say generally from filing your 485 to getting your green card in and around a year, give or take some months either side of that, depending on specifics. But unfortunately, like, I would love nothing more than to give people some clear, time frames around this, but the data is just not there for us to provide. Like, believe me, it would save so much of our day, because people do ask about this all the time, and like, we would love to give you specific guidance, but it's just not there to give. So that's the time frame now. Just, it's vague, and it's just like 12 months maybe, thereabouts. So somebody asked, why are travel and cards and work cards issued separately for green cards rather than together? Okay, so this is a new thing. In prior to, let's say, last year or the year before, they used to issue like a combo travel and work card. So it was in a card that looks like almost like a driver's license, and it would also say, assuming you had applied for the travel part, like, it serves as advanced parole as well. So it would be both a travel and a work card. It would be one in the two. Also, just because you get a travel card doesn't mean that you should use it. There are certain people who should not leave the US while a green card is pending, even with the travel authorization. So please make sure that you're getting specific advice about travel close to your travel. Like, travel advice is one of those things that, like, it's time sensitive, and we can't give you advice now on travel like 6 months down the line, like, because a lot of things could change in between now and then. So you really need to be communicating with your attorney about travel, like, before you do anything. So in the past, they used to be a combo card, but they started, like, it was kind of funny. We were talking the great decoupling, right? I think, was it like Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris, why can I not remember? And Coldplay, Chris Martin, they decoupled, right? And the USCIS have also decoupled the travel and the work card. But that's a good thing, actually, because it meant they wanted to separate them out, because they said they could issue them faster, and they could issue probably the work card, which was probably the more important thing for people. I guess everyone's situation is different, but they essentially decoupled them, adjudicated them both separately in an attempt to bring down the processing times. So that was the motivation behind it. It's actually a good thing, and we have seen the processing times come down for these. So again, it's just like impossible to predict time, but we would say maybe anywhere from 4 to like 8 months after filing the green card, you could get your travel and work. But again, it's just an estimate, and it's hard to predict. But so that is why. So hopefully I've taken care of those two questions there about the wait for a green card application for an employer, and why the travel and work cards are issued separately. The great decoupling. So there you go. Let me see. Oh, I know someone saying that it's a nightmare playing the waiting game. It is a nightmare, right? But one thing you can do is, like, look, let's like focus on what we have control over. And I think that, I know it's like the therapy session with your immigration attorney on a Friday afternoon, but like, it's okay. We have control over keeping on top of it in the way that we can. So what we can do is we can sign up for automatic updates through the USCIS website. We can put in our case data, we can put in our case number, and we can sign up for an update, so that we know when there's an action taken on the case, we will get notified of it. So, beyond that, there's, you don't have control over processing times. There's not very clear specific information. So you do have to just accept that uncertainty, as hard as it is to do. And just know that presumably you're working with a great team of people who we're all on the same team. We all want this for you. We'll all work together. And, you know, and like, if you're at that stage where you already have your green card filed, like, you're so close. You've already gone through so much to get where you are, that like, this is just the final hurdle. It's a big hurdle, but it's like you've jumped over so many more hurdles to get here. So it's in sight, that you can almost see the finish line. So focus on the positive about that. I do totally understand that's stressful though. But like, you're nearly there. So I'm putting out the manifesting the good vibes for you as well. And so hopefully that was helpful on a lovely sunny Friday in Chicago. Okay, so other questions that I am seeing is, hi everybody. Oh, there's so many people here. I'm so happy that you're all here with us on a Friday afternoon. Okay, so I think the question that we'd received about a postdoc, I think I answered that question. I'll touch on other options. If you want to come to study to do like a PhD, you're going to likely be on a F1 or maybe a J1, like they're depending on the program. And if you already have your PhD and you want to come to work here, you know, your options can be varied depending on kind of what the employer options are. A lot of times people do come based on an employment situation. And then I'm just laughing. People are saying they're freezing in New York. Yes, New York is cold. I was there yesterday. Chicago's also cold. But anyway, for you, so you could come through an employer that might sponsor you for a H-1B visa. And certain employers, like if you're doing research or working for a university, like you may be exempt from the H-1B cap, so you might not actually need to go through that H-1B lottery. So you may have other options that other people don't have. You also may be eligible for an extraordinary ability O1 visa. And this is where the updates that the Biden administration made last year. They changed the O1A policy manual to include evidence that is very relevant to someone with a PhD. I've had meetings with the White House about this and about they really want there to be certainty in relation to some of these options. So it's a great time to be looking at an O1A or a national interest waiver green card petition. You could potentially self-petition. You know, you can do that from overseas and kind of go straight for the green card, but you may want to get your foot in the door in terms of like building up some actual work in the US on a temporary visa first, to then show what the continued work would be and how it would be in the national interest of the US. So something to consider there. You might have a few options. You can also contact us if you want to consult. We can kind of go through these options and let you know what potential options you may have. It's a good idea if you do have some employment prospects lined up though, so that we could talk about that with you. There's also a J1 researcher. Yeah, there's a lot of potential options there for you, but some of them may require an employer and a kind of a job offer. So, okay, someone says you're on an L1 applying for a green card. Can we travel internationally while the green card application is processing? Okay, so this is the very specific question to your situation. And like the first thing I would say is travel questions really need to be directed towards your specific attorney and close to the time of travel. In theory, if you're on an L and you're leaving and you're coming back on the same L, you know, the L is a dual intent visa. So in theory, you know, travel on the L is permitted during the green card process. But you should talk to the attorney about that, because, you know, there's a travel permit that may be filed in relation to the green card, and whether or not you'd want to do that if you're going to be traveling on the L, because that can get, you know, so there's some things to discuss. But in theory, it can be possible to travel on the L while a green card is pending. But do not take this as like you're not going to be jumping on a plane tomorrow because I told you this through through Instagram. Of course, you're going to get a specific advice from your attorney close to the time of travel before you leave the US. That is like a very important, like, travel questions. Of course, they're quick to ask, but you know, to answer them, there's like a whole thing of like, you know, issues that we're going through and analysis that we're doing. So please get advice from your attorney close to the time of traveling. Okay, we're getting through a lot of these questions. So someone's saying L1, L2. Yeah, speak to your attorney about those, because the L1 and the L2 both have that like same dual intent, but it just depends on what you're coming back in on. So just I would advise you to talk to your lawyer about them. Okay, someone's saying currently looking to relocate from Ireland to New Jersey, also getting married in April to an American. Would being married raise any concerns? So first off, congratulations on your impending wedding. I would say let's pick this apart. Okay, so you're currently looking to relocate from Ireland to New Jersey. What immigration options are you looking at? Is it an employer-sponsored job that you're going to relocate with your employer? If so, have they discussed the L, or what are the options that they discussed? You mentioned you're getting married. Are you potentially looking at a marriage-based green card? So if so, we could discuss what that process is like. So you may have a couple of different options here. Would being married raise any concern? This is why I'm thinking, an employer move. Okay, so it depends on, I guess, maybe whoever asked this question is now confirming that it's through an employer. So you need to see like what options are available to you through your employer. There is the L1 is the company transfer visa. So that is for people who have worked for a company outside the US and are being transferred into a related company in the US, like a parent, a subsidiary, an affiliate, or a joint venture. So that's the L1A multinational or intra-company transfer visa, as it's technically known. The L has a dual intent kind of part of it. And what that means is that you don't have to show, like outside of very specific majority owner kind of L situations, you don't generally need to show that you're going to be returning back to your home country. So therefore being married to a US citizen shouldn't really be relevant in this case. But again, best to get advice from your particular attorney, your employer's attorney. If they don't have one, we'd be happy to talk to them to kind of discuss all this. And of course, when you apply for a visa through the embassy, there is a form known as a DS-160. And the DS-160 is like a big biographical form. Oh, the website, it gives us just migraines because it keeps glitching out. And like, it's just so frustrating because it keeps like logging people out, and it's like a terrible system. But pro tip, if you're trying to fill in a DS-160, I always use Google Chrome as the browser, because otherwise it just keeps kicking you out and it's just very, very annoying. But anyway, the DS-160 form specifically asks if you have any like immediate like family members in the US, and if so, who. So, it is all this comes out in like a DS-160 form. So the consulate or the embassy is aware of who your family members are in the US, when you go in for an interview. And so it may or may not be relevant. It just depends on what type of visa you're getting. I mean, I would imagine you're looking at an L visa based on this, but I have just very few details. But so I would say chat your, obviously give your attorney all the info, and then they can see if there's going to be any red flags or anything that might, kind of crop up. But yeah, so hopefully it's helpful. Okay. Can an individual have more than one employer petition for a H-1B? Okay, so this is probably about the H-1B cap period, the registration. There has been a lot of talk about this. Hi, everybody. Oh, you're so welcome for the guidance. I'm so glad you were able to ask the question and also be here when it was getting answered, because there was a little bit of clarification needed there. So hopefully it was helpful to you. Best of luck with your wedding and your move to the US. What exciting times ahead for you. So question, can an individual have more than one employer petition for a H-1B? I presume this is about, the H-1B registration period. There's been a huge amount of discussion about this, about like swamping the registration period, where people were getting like multiple employers to file H-1B petitions for them. Like some people had like 10, we've heard all sorts of like, I would say like hearsay, maybe rumor. Actually, there was a lawsuit as well about this, because there was like alleged fraud in this process. But I will say that the prohibition is on, you can't have related employers petition for you through those related entities. So, for example, like if an employer or a person own multiple companies and they're separate entities, they can't submit registrations for the same person through the different entities, because that's considered, I think, to be like a related entity. So that's not a good, plan, because I have, through our listserv, somebody mentioned that they're working with a client that got a request for evidence about that. It's called like a duplicate registration, where they looked into multiple registrations for that one person, and the case got denied, I think, because of it. So I think I know I totally understand that people want to have multiple irons in the fire. I think you do need to be careful though about the different entities that are submitting H1B registrations for you. And then if the case got selected, obviously, you would likely only have one, case filed for you. But I know that the whole problem with this is that the H1B system just doesn't accommodate the needs of the market. So, this is kind of why all this like mass kind of swamping registration has happened, because people are desperate to try to get a H1B visa. So I just think be careful with that though, because the last thing you want is to get selected in the lottery and then ultimately have the case denied because there was some allegation about duplicate registrations. So I think you can Google and see there's I'm sure the litigation, the lawsuit will come up about that duplicate registration period, or a duplicate registration kind of thing that has been happening, because this whole H1B registration thing is new over the past 3 or 4 years. In the past, everybody would file cases on April 1st, and then they would do the lottery from all the cases filed. But now it's registration, and then they tell you which cases were picked, and then only those cases that were picked file actual petitions. So I guess the thought is that it's easier to get somebody to file a registration for you than to have a firm prepare and file a full H1B case for you. So because of that, people were able to get multiple employers to do this registration for them, but you do need to be careful. Okay, so that I think is the end of the questions that we've received both before and okay, there's one other question coming up here. Okay, someone says hi to Bronwyn. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining us. And Marianne. Oh my God, Marianne, there's so many people that I haven't seen or heard from in such a long time, but this is the beauty of technology, being able to connect with people here. Billy, I see your question. So someone's asking, so answer that now. If you get a green card, must you stay in the US, or can you be living abroad and still? Okay, so this, I think the question is, after you get a green card, what do you have to do to maybe maintain it? And can you kind of go back and forth? So green cards really you do need to have your residence in the US. You have to have your domicile in the US. And domicile is an intent thing. And it's it's hard to really, how do you show what your intent is? This is a complicated situation though, because we had a lot of people who were green card holders who might have been abroad when the pandemic hit, and then they were prevented from returning for a very long period of time. And ordinarily that might have forced them to, maybe be asked about, did they abandon their green card when they were coming back in? Because you shouldn't, as a green card holder, have a gap longer than a year, and in no scenario longer than a year, but even between 6 months to a year outside the US, it can be tricky as well, because you need to show that you didn't intend on giving up your green card. So, the pandemic kind of changed this in some ways, because it was an unprecedented ban on travel, and obviously concern about travel with no vaccines and flights being cancelled and all sorts of stuff. So there was more flexibility there than we had ever really seen before. But still, you do, as a green card holder, need to show that your intent is to be domiciled, be resident in the US. If you have a green card and you're going to be abroad for an extended period of time, it is possible to apply for what's known as a re-entry permit. So that is kind of saying to the government, you file this when you're in the US, right? And you say to them, I'm going to be abroad for an extended period of time, but I'm not intending on abandoning my residence. So in the US, so let's say you got a job, or you don't necessarily have to go into all the details, but you file it to tell them, I'm telling you I'm going to be gone for an extended period of time, but I'm also saying that I do not want to give up my US green card or my US residence. And I think the re-entry permits are normally approved for a 2-year period, but you have to be physically in the US to file it. And then sometimes you need to get your fingerprints taken. So there's some logistical things to figure out. But it's hard to keep up a green card if you're not really staying in the US. If you're just popping in for a week at a time, I think at some point you're going to get questioned on that. So hopefully that answers your question. Just there is a kind of residency intent, attached to a green card as a permanent resident of the US. So there are some restrictions in relation to that. So Ian, my friend, how are you? One of my amazing immigration lawyer colleagues who actually sent me a message the other day, flashback from when we were at the airport fighting the Muslim ban, however many years ago. Memories popped up on his feed about that, which is like huge, like traumatic time for like everybody involved. But gosh, thankfully we're no longer there in relation to those types of like bans and stuff. Do I have an email? Yes, the best email, Billy, is info@mcenteelaw.com. So info at McEntee, MCENTEELAW.com. So just send us an email there, and James, our amazing client coordinator, will liaise with you. You're probably going to need a consult with an immigration attorney because you do want to get specific advice for your situation. So that's going to require probably, booking maybe 30 minutes with an attorney. So thanks to everybody for jumping on the ebook, US Immigration Options for Startups, Accelerate Your American Dream. Almost ready. My third child will be born hopefully next week. So I'm so excited for people to read it, and I cannot wait to get some feedback. Hopefully you find it as helpful as I am hoping it's going to be. It's for startup founders really, but it's not exclusive to startup founders. It just kind of covers some options that we commonly see with startups. Oh, thank you. Kathy's saying always so helpful. I'm so happy to be here. It's great to be back on First Fridays. It started out with First Fridays with Fiona because back in the pandemic, and then as our team grew and as we got other attorneys and they were excited to do it too, so now it's First Fridays with McEntee Law. I'm so happy that we can all share the stage together. We have an amazing diverse team of attorneys, and we have Catherine, we have Natalia, we have Ray, Michael as well, does a lot of stuff with us. He has his own firm but works with us on a lot of our cases. And so exciting, we had a new attorney join us this week, Pavel. He is from Poland originally. He has a lot of experience. He's like 11 plus years of experience and other, as a practicing attorney and years before that at working in immigration. So he's an amazing addition to our team. He just joined us this week. And so you'll probably see him maybe on the next First Friday. And I'm just so excited. Oh, you're so welcome, Lynn. Thanks for joining. I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling the nice feedback. And this is why we do these things, because we feel like they're helpful. And it's from what I'm hearing, it was helpful. So thank you for that validation. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend. We made it through almost. It's nearly 1 p.m. So we're nearly there. We've had a rough week at home. My kids have like the stomach flu and there's all sorts of like stuff going on. So we're almost finished the week. So thank you for joining us. Thanks to Liz from our team for helping me do this, even though she was off today. She set everything up ahead of time. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great to see everybody. Appreciate all the love. I will save this and we'll make it shareable later as well. So you all stay warm. Yeah, Kathy, you too. Everyone stay warm. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. Keep in touch with us. Oh, it's a long weekend. Yes, that's right. It's St. Bridget's. Is it St. Bridget's? I think because it's a new. Is it the first? I think it was the first Monday in February. Is now going to be a long weekend in Ireland in honor of St. Bridget. And the event in New York was there was a lot of talk about St. Bridget, and it was very fitting that there was a big group of women founded Irish startups that were set up by Vu. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining. But it was just such a room full of inspiration, creativity, like just supporting each other, and it was on St. Bridget's Day as well, which was fabulous. But enjoy the long weekend if you're in Ireland. If you're here in the US, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, great to be back. And I will see you all soon. Take care. Thanks. Nice weekend. Bye-bye.